Doctor Who calls for action, humour, horror, and tons of dodgy makeup. So it is no surprise that each of the 13 main stars have excelled in all different kinds of roles outside of Doctor Who. So with that in mind, I'm Ellie with Who Culture, here with 13 great non-Doctor Who performances by each Doctor. Number 13, Jody Whittaker in Adult Life Skills. Jody Whittaker plays Anna, a woman approaching 30 who is stuck in arrested development. She makes endearingly silly videos in her mother's shed, a hobby she has shared with her brother since childhood. The reappearance of an old school friend and a bond with a troubled neighbour opens Anna's insular world and offers her a way out of her self-imposed exile. Anna's shed is like a TARDIS, offering her the ability to escape the drudgery of her day job and constant arguments with her mother through these wacky videos which see her two thumbs bickering their way through space. Jody Whittaker absolutely nails this fine line between quirk, comedy and pathos, which presents us with the fully rounded character of Anna. Adult Life Skills was released in 2016, 2 years before Whittaker made her debut as the Doctor, and had a good run of UK and international film festivals as well. Now, it is less widely known than her performance in, say, Broadchurch or Trust Me, but it's a really likeable film and has a really good balance between moments of sadness and moments of great humour. A British story of loss and renewal, which actually isn't that bad a description of Doctor Who either. Number 12, Peter Capaldi in The Suicide Squad. Remember when Peter Capaldi was announced as the 12th Doctor and everyone and their grandmothers thought that we were going to see Malcolm Tucker in space? Well, thankfully we got something more akin to Hugh Laurie's house in a time machine. But if you're still looking to scratch that itch and see how Capaldi would have played a sweary, sinister sci-fi character, then look no further than his scene-stealing performance in 2021's Suicide Squad. Capaldi is perfect casting as the Thinker, the scientific genius of the Doctor combined with the potty mouth of Malcolm Tucker, but also a unique character in and of themselves. The scene where he outlines the alien plot as we move towards the film's climax is a wonderful piece of acting and a real highlight. The way he immediately switches from meek kidnapped scientist to evil mastermind is a real demonstration of how great a character actor Capaldi really is. Number 11, Matt Smith in Last Night in Soho. Matt Smith has had a slightly rocky run of credits following Doctor Who, from Ryan Gosling's woeful Lost River to Terminator Genesis. However, his work in The Crown as Prince Philip and his villainous turn in Edgar Wright's Last Night in Soho show us that there's hope for him yet. Smith excels as the initially charming but increasingly sinister Jack, as he transforms from charismatic talent scout to snarling misogynist. Now, without wanting to spoil too much of the film, the character has to go to some very dark places, and Smith is absolutely committed to the role, playing a character here that completely contrasts the role of the Doctor. And of course, we can't not mention that Matt Smith has most recently taken on the role of Daemon Targaryen in House of the Dragon, a role that he has received a lot of praise for and seems to have shot him into the spotlight once again. Number 10, David Tennant in Around the World in 80 Days. Now at this point, I am just convinced that David Tennant doesn't sleep. He has been extremely busy since leaving the role of the 10th Doctor. Now, not only is he revisiting the role in audio form and of course making his big return in the 60th anniversary special, but he's also starred in a great number of series since leaving, including Des, Good Omens, and most recently Around the World in 80 Days as Phileas Fogg, an optimistic traveller who's fascinated by science and exploration. Sound familiar? And yet, Fogg is miles away from Tennant's performance as the 10th Doctor. Where the 10th Doctor was confident and charismatic, Fogg is nervy and full of self-doubt. Rather than having an ingenious plan from the off, Fogg blunders his way towards a solution. As you'd expect, Tennant is utterly magnetic across the series, especially in the opening episode. The scene in the club where he's belittled by his old friend over lunch is an evocative portrayal of a man who's put things off for far too long. By the time he sets out on his quest, you are 100% behind him, because in a tone of voice and a mournful look, Tennant communicates to us that Fogg is a man who has been a constant disappointment to himself, and a man who is finally going to do something with his life. And just an honourable mention here to the 2011 remake of Fright Night, which is another wonderful performance by David Tennant that we would absolutely recommend that you watch. Number 9, Christopher Eccleston in The A Word. Now, when people talk about Christopher Eccleston as the Ninth Doctor, they often say that he was brilliant with the serious tones but not so great with the comedy. But if you've ever seen him bleeding radiators in A Year in the Life of a Year, or as a theatrical impresario in The League of Gentlemen, then you may conclude that it was more maybe a fault in the writing and directing than in the actor himself. And The A Word, a drama about a family dealing with an autism diagnosis, is another example of how deft Eccleston can be with lighter material. Playing Morris, he excels as the well-meaning but occasionally tactless grandfather who is given a second chance at love following the death of his wife. The comedy in The A Word works so well because it's grounded in realism, as the northern locations have a clear sense of place, and it's clear that there was an extensive amount of research made into autism for the scripts. That realism is where Eccleston excels, and it's what frees him up to play the more breezier comic heart of that series. Number 8, Paul McGann in Withnail and I. Paul McGann has been a regular feature on our screens both before and after his one-night-only performance as the Doctor in 1996. His defining performance, however, was as I in the classic film Withnail and I, starring alongside the great intelligence himself, Richard E. Grant. Withnail and I is one of the great films about actorly ambition and male friendship. As the long-suffering friend and flatmate of Withnail, Paul McGann communicates his exasperation and anxiety with subtle looks, anxious intakes of breath, and finally blows up in spectacular fashion once the pair go on holiday by mistake. And yet, as selfish as Withnail can be, there's a real tenderness to their friendship that comes through by the film's beautifully moving conclusion. And all of that is down to the chemistry between both actors and McGann's tentative portrayal of their parting. Number 7, Sylvester McCoy in Still Game. Sylvester McCoy is a true Renaissance man, a ferret wrangler, a clown, a wizard, the Seventh Doctor, and an actor capable of turning in some truly devastating performances in Scottish sitcoms. He first played Rabsy Nesbitt's bipolar uncle in the moving episode Father to heartbreaking effect, and was then cast in the episode Oot in Still Game's third series. It's one of the show's first proper star turns, and McCoy brings the sort of mercurial charm he brought to his Doctor to Hermit Archie. He's an absolute joy to watch, from his panicked trip down a rubber rapids at the swimming pool to his addiction to Big Macs. As ever with Still Game, there's also a great deal of heart to the story beyond the comedy. As a performer and as someone with family history of mental illness, McCoy clearly responds to the material and gives it the humanity and humour that it requires. And it really is a testament to how underrated he is as both an actor and as the Doctor. Number 6, Colin Baker in Jonathan Creek. Actor and comedian Alan Davies was always cited as a potential Doctor in the build-up to the 2005 reboot, and such speculation was firmly rooted in his performance as the titular Jonathan Creek in the Saturday night murder mystery series that ran throughout the 1990s. And this series was produced by original series producer Verity Lambert, which no doubt added fuel to that speculation. However, the very first episode features a brilliant, albeit brief, performance by Colin Baker. He plays an adulterous artist with a talent for painting topless clowns and an appalling ponytail. It's a delightfully lascivious performance by the former Sixth Doctor, who is having a ball with lines like, "I just want you to come over here and make me bark like a sea lion." Now there's an image for you. Number 5, Peter Davison in A Very Peculiar Practice. In a 1990s interview, Stephen Moffat once said that Peter Davison was the best actor to play the Doctor. And while that is certainly up for debate, there is no doubt that he has been consistently in work since his time on the show ended in 1984. Davison often excels as an increasingly flustered straight man amid a cast of weirdos or maniacs. The best iteration of this is in Andrew Davis's satirical university set drama series, A Very Peculiar Practice. Davison plays Dr. Stephen Dacre, a new recruit to the Lowlands University medical practice. Dacre is a bundle of nerves and anxieties, plagued by strange dreams, competitive colleagues, and the red tape and bureaucracy of 1980s university life. A Very Peculiar Practice is a surreal comedy marvel, anchored by Davison's everyman performance. We root for him as he struggles through relationship issues and workplace politics. It's one of his finest performances and actually one of Davison's personal favourites. Number 4. Tom Baker in Lionel Nimrod's Inexplicable World. Tom Baker has clearly been a huge influence on a generation of comedians, appearing alongside Reeves and Mortimer in Randall and Hopkirk, Matt Lucas and David Walliams in Little Britain, and Charlie Higson and Rhys Thomas in Swiss Tony. Another show that's less well remembered is Stuart Lee and Richard Herring's Radio 4 show Lionel Nimrod's Inexplicable World. Baker plays the titular Lionel Nimrod, a fruity parody of Mr. Spock himself, Leonard Nimoy, and each episode would tackle inexplicable, occasionally cryptozoological phenomena across the sea, the human body, creation, and so much more. And Tom Baker would open and close each episode with these wonderful monologues with lines such as, "So the striking black curtain we call time is drawn aside." It's definitely worth checking out for anyone with a keen interest in British comedy. Number 3. Jon Pertwee in Who Done It. If you were growing up in the 1990s, then Jon Pertwee was Mr. Saturday Night. He would regularly show up on the likes of Noel's House Party, Celebrity Squares, Paul Daniels' Magic Show, and Surprise Surprise. More than any other Doctor, he fully embraced the fame that the role brought, and appearing in light entertainment such as these no doubt was appealing to his background in comedy and variety. Prior to this, Pertwee had shifted from acting to presenting back in the mid to late 1970s with the appropriately named Who Done It. This was a panel show in which Pertwee would challenge his celebrity guests to solve a fictional murder written and performed via video links. Pertwee was, unsurprisingly, an affable host, riffing with his guests and engaging in the kind of easy banter that you could enjoy in his convention appearances throughout the 80s and 90s. It was a real hoot! Number 2. Patrick Troughton in Survivors. Terry Nation's post-apocalyptic, post-pandemic drama Survivors has become painfully relevant in recent years. The first series in particular captures the panic, isolation and madness that responds to such a catastrophic existential threat. Whilst the second series is often a lot lighter, playing out like a post-apocalyptic version of The Good Life, there is still danger on the horizon. Nowhere is that better exemplified than in Patrick Troughton's cameo as kindly barge owner John Millen in the episode Parasites. Troughton was an in-demand character actor throughout his career, and while his performance here may seem small fry compared to his work in The Box of Delights or The Omen, he manages to form the whole episode's emotional core with just a few minutes of screen time. Striking up a friendship with survivor Mina, John later disappears, only to be replaced by two suspicious men. As the men's intentions become clear and John's fate is revealed, the audience get a true sense of the danger still present on the outskirts of the survivors' idyllic country compound. And the fact that poor John Millen is played by lovely old Patrick Troughton adds just an extra dimension of horror. Number 1. William Hartnell in The Agitator. Now, it is well known that due to ill health, William Hartnell very rarely acted again following his departure from Doctor Who. He made a few guest appearances on shows such as The Cliff Richard Show and appeared in an appalling pantomime before retiring. It's also well known that it was his role as Johnson in This Sporting Life that attracted the attention of Verity Lambert when casting for Doctor Who. However, one of Hartnell's greatest performances is much lesser known, partly due to the fact that this 1945 film was believed lost for many years. In The Agitator, Hartnell plays a socialist activist who is forced to question his beliefs when he inherits ownership of the factory in which he works. It's an incredibly layered performance in which Hartnell rattles off long speeches with a palpable sense of righteous fury, whilst his later inner turmoil is utterly compelling viewing. And that concludes our list. If you disagree with our suggestions and you have a better suggestion, then do let us know in the comments below. And while you're there, don't forget to like and subscribe and tap that notification bell so you never miss a Who Culture video again. Also head over to Twitter and follow us there, and I can be found across various social medias just by searching Ellie Littlechild. I've been Ellie with Who Culture, and in the words of Riversong herself, goodbye, sweeties.